Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Whoops. So when I came out of my igloo in Boston, and my husband asked me where I was going, I said, I'm going to Balmy, New York to hang out with a bunch of really cool executive coaches. And he said, well, if you're going to be talking to coaches and about motivation and all that kind of thing, he said, don't forget what the great Lou Holtz once said. And I said, what's that? He said, you know, motivation is simple. You eliminate the ones who aren't motivated. That's not exactly a choice that we have, is it? On the other hand, I don't know if you're like me, I find most of my clients are really motivated. They want to become the best leaders they can be, right? But when it comes to topics like this one, executive presence, the real challenge is what kind of advice do we give them? How do we guide them to become the leaders they want to be, especially in this very mysterious category of executive presence? Case in point, I'm working with a couple of CEO candidates, same company, Fortune 50 company, both great guys. You would love them. Just great human beings, phenomenal track records of success. I mean, they've done it all. They both deserve to be the CEO of some company someday. But that's kind of where the similarities end. One of them is, well, he's kind of introverted, deliberate, thoughtful, analytical. He's the guy who, well, the CEO calls whenever they've got a real mess of a problem. He's always the go-to guy. Now, the other guy is, I'd say, a little more outgoing, almost gregarious for an executive. He's always out and about. I mean, he starts at 7 in the morning. He's out till 10 o'clock at night. Loves to be around people. He really has done some phenomenal work. In every business he's been in, he's grown it. But both of them have been told by their CEO and their board they need to work on what? And therein lies the failure point, right? What the heck is this thing anyway, and how are we supposed to coach to it if we don't know what it is? So I don't know about you guys, but how many of you, when you were age 6 or so, woke up one day, 6, 7, 8 years old, and said, I want to be an executive coach when I grow up? So most of us have gotten to this in a rather circuitous way, I would guess. My story's maybe a little like yours. I started out my career 23 years as a television news anchor and reporter, right? And so I got really comfortable with the microphone, which I thought was actually excellent training. Interviewing politicians and criminals was great training for the C-suite. But eventually, I found my way into my own business, and we started to grow. And because our space was, as Rini said, communicative leadership, we would get all these questions about executive presence. So we would go in dutifully and sit down with the HR director, the business leader, whoever was requesting coaching. And when executive presence was the need, we would say, well, that's great. Could you explain a little bit more about what you mean about executive presence? And what do you think we heard? I know when I see it. Now, interestingly, that's exactly the same thing that Justice Potter Stewart said in the 1960s about pornography. This is where pornography and executive presence intersect. But really, it's no good at all, is it, if we can't define it? We've got to be able to figure out how to talk about it. We need a common language for it. So before I go on and delve into the model and a little bit about the research, what I want to do is just get some thoughts from you about how people define it in your organization. And I know we have a couple of mics in the room, but I'm just going to go around. Maybe you can shout it out. Shout it out, stand up, use your diaphragm so that we all hear you. We want to make sure we can hear everybody, because these are quick. So how do people typically define, I don't know what happened there, executive presence in your organization? There are no right or wrong answers, people. Don't be afraid. I know you've had your coffee. Don't worry about it. We're just trying to collect some thoughts. Yes?